Hello and welcome back to China. I'm Phil Liggett, and this is the second stage of the second year of the running of the Tour of Beijing. And yesterday we saw Elia Viviani take out the first stage. He wears the leader's red jersey today as we head towards the mountains. The stage restarting from the Bird's Nest Stadium, the Olympic Park, where it started, where it finished rather yesterday, as it's sandwiched between the National Aquatic Centre, which we know as the Water Cube, on the left there, and on the right, the Bird's Nest Olympic Stadium. The riders signing in, 140 of the 143 entries signing in for this second day of racing. The race itself, 126 kilometres. Andy Schlechter signing in the black jersey, recovering from his injuries just before this year's Tour de France, and riding, he hopes, right through for the next 5 days of racing here in Beijing, as he now thinks more of the season 2013.
As we move on,
the riders leading just behind the finishing line where they finished yesterday after 12 circuits of the Olympic Park. Team Lampre here from Italy. They did not provide the sprint finisher in Alessandro Petacchi yesterday, as they had really hoped. As the team from Garmin Sharp sign on today, they have one outstanding rider on their team in rider Hejidal, the winner of the Giro d'Italia this year, first Canadian rider to do that. Heinrich Hausler briefly, he won this stage last year, although it must be said over a different route between the two start and finish points here. Dan Martin also maybe looking forward to today. He's a very, very good climber, as the field all sign in. Getzi Bol of the Rabobank team there.
So all the riders now.
It's the last World Tour event of the season, and the man who's in the hot seat today, and he really is, because he's not a great climber, Elia Viviani of the Liquigas Cannondale team, took out the sprint yesterday, very difficult sprint in high winds, and now he knows he's heading towards the mountains, which are just to the north of the city of Beijing. The riders setting off from here in an easterly direction before they turn north, through the mountains, and then drop south to finish in Mentugu. Utilised rollout just to get everybody in order before they start the actual race themselves. Everybody in good mood today because the forecast is a good one. Nice temperatures around 24 degrees Celsius, clear blue skies, no forecast of rain at all. The most pleasant day for the bike race, and the wind, which came yesterday, surprisingly enough, has carried on going, and it's now very calm indeed. Heading out towards the race start proper. 126 miles, a first category climb, coming halfway through the event after 63 kilometres, and as always happens in any major international stage race, as soon as that checkered flag is pulled in, the attacks begin. The red jersey in the hot seat, Elia Viviani. He won his first race yesterday since March this year, 7th in all for the season. His team, Liquigas Cannondale, going to have to work pretty hard at the front to try and keep control of this race today, as already a breakaway trying to establish itself here. Just riding on the back there, number 33, that is Matthias Frank, former Swiss champion of the BMC racing team, being joined here on the breakaway by Juan Manuel Garate, former Spanish champion back in 2007 it would be, and a former winner of a stage of the Tour de France up Mont Ventoux, that giant mountain of Provence, which he won just a couple of seasons ago. Matthias Frank are trying to really warm things up here. There's a long flat road as we head out here onto Highway 5 on the ring road before we run round to getting into much narrower roads, and that's when the climbs will begin as we start. First on the agenda are the 2 sprint points along the way, and this year for the first time, small time bonuses, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second for the first 3 riders, and for the moment at least those time bonuses are of a great importance and could decide the destiny of the next red jersey today. No time trial this year, and that's why number 1, Tony Martin, the winner of the race last year, who consolidated his lead on day 1 in the time trial, never relinquished it all the way to the finish over 5 days of racing, isn't perhaps so confident of retaining his title this time out. No time trial, and ahead are the hills north of Beijing. And there's proof that Liquigas Cannondale anxious to keep their man in red, because they've set the pace, trying to control the breakaways, the enthusiasm. And despite this being at the wrong end of the cycling season, the season getting underway in January in Australia, ending here in China in October, it's a very, very long year for the riders. Some 40,000 kilometres will be ridden by the professional cyclists in training and racing during the 10 months of the season. Little breakaway establishing itself at the moment as it gets up towards the lower slopes of this first long first category climb. Hongarate, who was very active yesterday defending for his team in the race, now deciding it's time to put himself into a move. Just tagged on to the back of the race here. Just looking at the Movistar rider here, it looks to me as though we have got Gutierrez in the breakaway as well. Juan Ivan Gutierrez for the Movistar team, also latched into this little front group. Also in that, Maxime Belkov from Katusha in the red jersey, if you catch a glimpse of him. David Tanner, the Australian, on the Dutch Saxo Bank Tinkoff team. And Omega's Dario Cataldo, forming that little league group. Well, we're now going to see a really beautiful part of China here, as for the moment at least we say goodbye to the ancient and modern city of Beijing and head out up into the mountains. Following the lead car, there's the first breakaway sign. A minute 40 is the first gap, so they've started to move clear quite quickly here. That's Belkov of Katusha sitting at the back. Good steady pacemaking. A long way to go when they top out this climb. Exactly halfway around the 126 kilometres. 63 done and 63 to go. And if you could just catch a glimpse of the back of that peloton, you would see that the riders were beginning to tail off. And this is the back of the peloton, and the red jersey of Elia Viviani already in big difficulty here. This is not a great start to the first climb of the day, with half of the race still lying ahead of him. He's got one teammate looking after him, and that is Cristiano Salerno, fellow Italian. His job today to nurse the race leader, hopefully back into the peloton. A lot of the Russian riders here from Katusha also slipping back, and this is why. Because Euskaltel-Euskadi, the Basque team from Spain, have decided they want those 5 riders back, and they're setting such a tempo here on the climb, they've completely stripped the peloton. I don't think this was to be expected. There you get a little bit of a better idea of the gradient here as we run right along the basement of those mountains. I must say it looks rather like the 12 Apostles mountain chain just outside of Cape Town, South Africa, as the riders skim round the edge there. This is the leading breakaway, and it looks to me as though they are being brought back as we speak now by that Euskaltel-led chase group. Riders already reaching there, because I can see rider Hejerdal and his Garmin Sharp teammate Dan Martin. They've just hooked up at the back of this group. They've reached them first. But it looks like the Euskaltel-Euskadi boys are going to bring back quite a sizable group here. Now, I can tell you, not in that group are pre-race favourites like Taylor Phinney and indeed Andy Schleck, who's trying to get back to form. Both missing the split. Still time to repair the damage. But as you can see, the road surface of these roads here in China, absolutely superb. And with favourable winds, these boys are flying up this mountain. Dan Martin just checking over, and there's the view. Now, this is the result of the first sprint here, with Grivkov taking it out from Kunjiang of China. They were in a 2-rider breakaway. This was at the beginning at 22 kilometres. Alan Davies sweeping up from the peloton, the sprinter. We've had the 2 sprints. We'll try and bring you the other one as well as these riders. And there it is. After 47 kilometres, the breakaway had formed. Matthias Frank, David Tanner, Maxime Belkov and Jose Ivan Gutierrez, they took the 4 places. And the first 3 getting small time bonuses. But that's all history now. We race up to the top of the first category mountain. 63 kilometres will be covered when we get there. Half distance, an attack on the far right there. Looks like rider Hejerdal decided to stamp on those pedals. He said before the start of this race that he was here to try and finish off what has been for him his finest ever season. First Canadian to win the Giro d'Italia. First Canadian to win any Grand Tour, France, Spain or Italy. And now he is trying to win this race here. And there's a little bit of a surprise with the effort being made by the Euskaltel team to try and put Samuel Sanchez into this front group, which they've done. They're paying the price a little bit just at the moment, because slipping off the back there, Anton Hernandez. And the other boys in orange that set the pace, they're also sitting at the back of this group just for the moment perhaps. Jean Perrault is the rider on the back and suffering. Edvard Boysenhagen just joining here, the champion of Norway. He's come from the split, which indicates to me he's realised that this attack may not be seen again today. Now once we're over the top of this mountain, a long fast descent, and Boysenhagen's really hurt himself to reach these riders. Huge effort from the Sky Rider, double stage winner in the Tour de France, and in fact he may just have got on there, but the increase in speed has sent him off the back again. The only good news is he's approaching the top of the climb, so he should get back on the way down. As we go to the front, this is Dan Martin now opening up the King of the Mountains competition with this climb. No mountains yesterday, of course, in the city centre, but Dan Martin takes maximum points there. 12 points for Dan Martin. He is, by the way, the nephew of the Tour de France winner from Ireland back in 1987, Stephen Roach, one of only 2 riders in the world to have won the 3 major races in the same year, which was the Tour de France, the Tour of Italy and the world title. The only other man was Eddie Merckx back in 1974. Now he's still clear over the top. A few deep breaths. I can't imagine for one moment he's hoping to stay clear in the mountains here all the way to the finish. The last 25 kilometres are downhill and flat, but he's still a long way to go before he sees those roads, bringing him back down towards Mentogo. The best thing he can hope for now is to keep the pressure on, force the riders to chase him, and try and keep that split, because down on these slopes here the bends sweep. It's not a technical descent, and it goes on for quite a way, which means these riders are going to reach 100 kilometres an hour down here, and that should be enough to stop anybody catching up from behind. Team AG2R, La Mondiale, 2 riders in this breakaway. Sylvain Georges, who's just gone over the top of that mountain, not very far behind. He will have scored mountain points for sure. First category climbs, first 5 riders get points in that competition. Looking here at the chase group, which is still quite big, and sat there right at the back is Hayden Rolson of New Zealand on the Radio Shack team of Andy Schleck, but Schleck is not here. Schleck already behind, and as far as I know he's in the same group as the race leader, Viviani. So Viviani is not going to keep that lead now. They've just cruised over the top, and it looks to me as though they've just around about a minute in arrears. Looking down at the leading group here, still 1 rider ahead, I think, so they're still coming up on Dan Martin. Basically regrouping here. Another little attack sprouting up on the left of the road. And this looks like it's Gutierrez here of Movistar, who's decided to keep the pace high by launching an attack. Next obstacle will come at around 73 kilometres as we start the climb now. It's only a 3rd category climb, which in rankings is the most shallow of the 3 climbs today, first being the steepest. And it looks to me as though the chase group, although it's got bigger, is not making too much progress just now. Stunning scenery here as we race through the mountains. The snow about a month away from these northern hills of Beijing. And the district we're racing into today, although we've managed to find a flat road for the finish, it in fact is 98.5% mountainous roads in the district of Montaugo. Really, you're getting quite a study in speed down here, because these riders, the roads themselves are not that wide, but they're completely closed, of course, and the riders can use the full width. And just skimming off the apex of these bends here, they'll keep the speeds between 80 and 100. Perhaps not quite so fast now as we get to off the mountain, running into the valley briefly before we start the climb again. Sylvain Georges from the AG2R team on the front. Two riders in the breakaway there. The other one is Nocentini. And this is Simon Clark of Orica Green Edge. This year, in his first Grand Tour, the Vuelta a España, he came away with the King of the Mountains title. An incredibly good result. There is Nocentini, Ronaldo, and just riding behind him there is Jan Bekelants, the Belgian rider, doing well to find himself in a selection like this, I must say. It's the riders just warning each other there of that sharp left-hand bend. And Movistar, who won the team prize yesterday, which is a count back on points because the riders all finished together, have got themselves a full team up in this breakaway, which is going to help them in that team competition, this time on time. 3 riders count for the team. They accumulate the first 3 riders from each team to finish every day. Best time takes the lead. And number 22 down there, that is Gavazzi of the Astana team. Very good sprinter, and looking around the composition of this breakaway, probably the best sprinter in it. Jan Bekelants sat at the back, may be able to turn a sharp pedal if it comes to it. Tanel Kangert is here, the national champion of Estonia. And there's the team leader of the Movistar team, Rui Costa, winner of the Tour of Switzerland, which is a 10-day race. Longest race behind the 3 Grand Tours, France, Italy and Spain. Bekelants still sitting at the back. He's been there for quite a while now, maybe just content to be in this move. It's a very, very good selection. There's Kangert in that white jersey at the colours of his national championship and the black and blue of his country. Estonia, same colours as the flag. Igor Anton now giving way to Sylvain Georges. This is the chase behind. It really is a real pursuit through the mountains just at the moment, and I can tell you those boys up front are going marginally quicker, even though it looks here as though George Bennett is dragging along the Radio Shack teams to try and put them back in position. They wouldn't have expected this breakaway to continue to improve on them going downhill, but they really have not eased up at all as the autumn tints up in the mountains start to show through. And the riders who started it in orange and have put the Olympic champion of 2008, Samuel Sanchez, in this leading group. Sanchez is the rider a little bit further down the line in the same coloured jersey, allowing his 2 teammates to do the work. A lot of work being done by the French rider Sylvain Georges, 3rd place here at the moment. And the 4th place rider there is Tony Martin, the rider who can time trial but hasn't really shown us any particular skill at climbing mountains, and clearly in no trouble just now, sitting in the 4th place in the line. Just behind him for Liquigas Cannondale is Eros Kopecky. You can just see the way this ribbon of a road just lies along the shoulders here of the hillside. It ducks and it dives. So we're moving on to the 3rd category climb. It's almost like a helter-skelter as these riders go around these corners. Euskaltel got themselves under control again, heading up towards the top of the 3rd category climb. Watch out for Dan Martin there in the blue on the left of our picture. He scored well on the first climb with 12 points there. Sylvain Georges also scored well. He's in the white jersey in 4th place. There are 2 riders here from Liquigas as well. And it looks to me as though Dan Martin's decided to push on. As we get into the barriers, he's heading up towards the finishing line. This is going to be a great day out for him, because if he gets over the top with 5 points, and he's done just that, as they rejoin him at the front with Igor Anton taking 2nd place, that means he's now got 17 points with 1 climb left on the day, worth 8. So he'll be the first wearer of the polka dot King of the Mountains jersey tonight. And there's 4 more climbs tomorrow which will suit him down to the ground if he's not too tired from this breakaway. Bakeland still at the back in the position we call the ticket collector. Keeps an eye on all the passengers on the train. But nonetheless, the leading group, which is now beginning to look like it could be the escape of the day, and it numbers about 25 riders, no more than that, with a lot of big names having missed out, but also a lot of big teams represented, which means who's going to chase behind. Radio Shack clearly have missed the move here, and they're left to do all of the work, and some sterling work being done by New Zealand's George Bennett. They're a kilometre from the summit now, which puts the leading group now approaching 2 kilometres ahead of the chase and gaining all of the time. 1 more climb to come. They'll top out at 100 kilometres done of the 126 when they get over the next climb of the day. Then it really is downhill to the finish. Well, for the riders with great descending skills, these must be like a gift from heaven, these roads. They're so untechnical, lovely sweeping bends, are perfectly surfaced roads, very, very quick indeed. And that's why it's offering little chance now for the chasers to get back on terms. There's only so fast you can pedal a bike, and around about 100 kilometres an hour is very close to the limit. Igor Anton still hopefully setting the pace for Samuel Sanchez to maybe launch on the next climb. The Olympic champion has told us that he's come here to race on his favourite roads. We go very close tomorrow when we go to the Badeling, the Great Wall at Badeling, to the Olympic road race course, and that was where Samuel Sanchez won his Olympic gold medal 4 years ago. Been a rough year for Samuel this year. He's had a couple of really bad crashes, and he's just about getting himself into shape again. Big effort this time. It looks like Nocentini who's come to the front, and not Sanchez, and not Georges rather. No, it is Georges. He's the man with the yellow sunglasses on. Sanchez, not Sanchez, but Nocentini has white. Thank heavens, for the commentator's sake. And he actually, the way Georges leans around these corners, you really would think he was taking part in the Moto Grand Prix. Sticks his knee out, leans into those bends, tries to keep the body weight dead center to balance on these corners. Those very, very light tyres, just weighing 150 grams or so, pumped to the 4 times the pressure of a car tyre. Chance perhaps to pan back. Bakeland's not so happy going down as it seems he is going up. He's sitting off the back of the group here, just so he can see his way down. It is very unwise to follow the path of another descender. You must see your own way off the mountain. Very sharp reverse hairpin there. This year I think the Tour of Beijing, because of the more ambitious course layout and introducing the climbs that surround the city of Beijing, also giving us the chance to see some of the beautiful interior of China itself. No progress at all at the moment. The latest time gap we've had over the top of that 3rd category climb is 1 minute and 18 seconds. So it's not over. That is a bridgeable gap. But as this the route today is downhill on very good roads, long stretches of downhill followed by short stabs uphill, it doesn't all well for the chasers to recontact these leaders. Just sat at the back here from the Garmin Sharp team. Looks to me like Fabian Weckmann, the German national champion. It's the first time I've seen him, so it may be he has come across the gap on his own there. There's the results over the mountain we've just seen. The first category climb with Martin, Sylvain Georges, Matthias Frank, Tony Martin and Ryder Hesjedal getting 5th. 12 points then for Dan Martin. That was the first climb, and we're already over the third category climb at 76 kilometers, so that's the result of that one. Another 5 points for Martin. This time it was Igor Anton in second, Verdugo getting third, his teammate, and Sylvain Georges in fourth. So Georges will have moved up into second place with his two scores there, but a clear lead at the moment for Dan Martin. Last year's second in the Giro di Lombardia in Italy, one of the most famous of the big one-day classics. They used to call it the race of the falling leaves, being held in autumn as it is. And this year's edition, very cold and very wet, I must say. This is Verdugo now setting the pace, driving them down the mountain. The gap has gone out from 118 over the top. It's now gone out to 125 on the descent. So these two Basque riders really pushing this race on at the front. They're resting Sanchez. He's still in the centre of the pack there. We haven't seen him near the front, and it was him that whipped up his team to catch the original breakaway, which they did, and split the field at the same time. So a double bonus. Little bit of move off to the left now by the Omega team. Dario Cataldo stepping on the pedals. Chased down here by Dan Martin. We're on the second category climb here, so Dan Martin clearly looking for any split at all. If he wins the top of this climb, be a perfect day out for him. He'll have a nap hand. He's in second place. Just coming up behind him there is Machinsky. And then it looks like it's Nocentini who's come up in fourth place, rather than the man he wants to see there, Sylvain Georges, who scored better on the two previous climbs. That's probably why he keeps looking over to see if his teammate is coming across the gap. Well, certainly coming across that gap is Eros Kopecky, the tall man from Liquigas. Slechter is coming across in the Rabobank colours. In fact, he's just gone back into the pack. It's a big effort, this, by Dan Martin. Not that far from the kilometre to go. That's what it looks like from the helicopter. A little bit of false flat just around the corner before they climb up to the top of this particular climb, which is the last one of the day, and once through it, 26 kilometres left to ride. And no sign of a chase at all, and they're all back together. Well, that was a huge effort. It could well have been produced there by Edvard Boysenhagen in the white jersey to our right, the champion of Norway. Now he's the next logical leader of this race at the moment. He sits in fourth place overall, but the riders who are in the top three places are many minutes behind now. Another move by Nocentini. The Italian getting a bit frisky, and this time on the counter move, no signs of the blue jersey of Dan Martin. Machinsky is the rider in third place who has come across this gap. And this time it is Tom Slachter who's just tagged on to the back in fifth place. The gap has opened and we are not very far from the top here. So there should be a reaction from Dan Martin, but that previous attack he's just been caught from must have hurt him a little bit. Certainly Nocentini's got a plan here. He's really racing for the top of this mountain, and I'm sure it's not just for the top of the mountain. He's got a plan to push on, I think. Being chased all of the time here by Rafael Machka. Regrouped. Cataldo, Slachter, Machka, Nocentini and Majinsky. Slachter coming up towards the summit here. Really good, promising rider. Rabobank have got some tremendous young riders coming through, as they often do have. And although it looks as though Dan Martin is trying to reach them, and there's no points for him, he's 6 over the top. There's the summit. Tom Slachter gets it. He takes maximum points. It won't help him take the lead today as we now disappear through the mountain. And 6th place for Dan Martin over the summit and no points scored, but it won't affect the immediate destiny of the leader's jersey. But again, you see the field here split asunder on the sheer speed of the way these riders have come up the mountain today. Now there is still a group ahead. This is the group trying to reform here, but there's a group of riders who have fled this breakaway and they're trying to desperately repair the damage now. Well, in this second year of the Tour of Beijing, we haven't seen the field split asunder like this, but the pressure has been on. There from the helicopter is the lead group. Looks like 5 riders, Slactor sitting on the back of them as they now start the way down. Quite a long descent this before we get into the valley and then race down into the centre of Mentogo. That looks like Tony Martin is in the split because he's now on the front of the group. 6 riders it seems, maybe 7. And once again, once on these descents, nobody backing off. They're just not allowing the riders to rejoin on these descents. Tony Martin leads the charge away from the mountains for the day. I think in fairness we didn't expect the defending champion to attack in the mountains because he almost never has done in his whole career. He's 2 times the world time trial champion, and he's taken a look over his shoulder there and assessed. He's only seen a handful of riders, not the big field as it was going up the mountain, and to me he's almost tempting them now to come and join him. He's had for the first half of the year a horrible season, knocked off by a car on the 11th of April with multi-fractures in the face and in the arms. Took him a while to recover from that. He got into the Tour de France just in time to fall off again and break his wrist. And in the end the doctors told him to retire from the Tour and not do any further damage, and somehow in a matter of only 3 weeks he managed to get himself shipshape and take the silver medal in the Olympic Games time trial. And he topped that just a couple of weeks ago with the gold medal in the World Time Trial Championship in Valkenburg. And now he's trying to show his other facet. He can go uphill and down dale as fast as anybody else. Look at this. Well, this is the sign of an angry man getting it all out on the roads of China, I think, after a season which has been spoilt right through until the end of July. Those riders behind are not organised. They're looking at each other. Nobody's helping each other. For a moment, the common enemy is Tony Martin, the defending champion, the way he's going down this mountain. He goes to the dappling effect of the sun through the trees. It's already beginning to go down behind the tops of the mountains here. No sign, and just to prove me wrong, there is a sign. Just a handful of riders in the distance, but they're losing ground. And I think we just passed 20 kilometres to go there. Just got a glimpse of it on the trees. There's the result of the climb. Tony Martin going over the top there in 2nd place, Nocentini in 3rd. Majka, who's one of the best young riders in this league group, along with Slactor, Marcinski, Thomas from the Vacances Soleil team from the Netherlands. He was the last scorer there. Dan Martin was 6th, but no points. Now they need to get together. 2 young riders vying for the best newcomer's white jersey are in that chase group. Viviani was also the leader of that category, along with the green points and along with the red leaders. He's now reported to be 9 minutes behind the leaders on the road. Well, it'll be very interesting to know if Tony Martin actually planned this move or he just realised it was an opportunity to go. If this man is allowed to settle into his rhythm, they won't catch him. It's a very painful way to go down the mountains, I must say, but he can't get any more speed out of the bike. And he's beginning to come down the mountains now and into the area of industry again. Mentogo is due west of where the riders started today by only about 25-30 kilometers. But of course the riders started off and went north, circumnavigated the lower slopes of this mountain range, and then, as we're seeing here, starting to fall away from the mountains to return down into Mentogo. Big crowd waiting for them on the finishing line. Enjoyed an afternoon of entertainment. Most notable thing here that we're still not seeing any signs of Samuel Sanchez doing any work here. It's still Verdugo and Igor Anton, the two hard workers for Euskaltel. Sanchez is in this group, and that group is still chasing, don't forget, the 6 or 7 riders left by Tony Martin on the way down this mountain. I would suggest the field is now spread-eagled over perhaps 20 minutes to half an hour. Wise man, just a little bit of food perhaps before his final push towards the finish. These are the chasers looking through the wheels here of Kopecky. He's not a bad sprinter for a tall man. There's the man most likely to, though, to win the sprint, because that's Gavazzi. Very fast finisher, and I must say, a bit of a surprising element to be up with this group of riders. Edvard Boysenhagen in second place, missed the move here. He still hasn't latched up with those leading riders. Sun right on top of the riders now. Boysenhagen left to do some work. He made a huge effort to get this front group, but he's been foiled by the speed on the last climb of the day. Machinsky setting the pace. Just behind him is Sylvain Georges. Tony Martin, his back is aching, I think. He's struggling a little bit just now, but he knows he still has the gap. I'm not sure whether you could read that with the sun whiting out that whiteboard, but it was saying around about 25 seconds his advantage. Very close if we haven't already passed the last 10 kilometers of the day. This is back to the main part of the original chase group, which seems to have regrouped here quite well. Number 134 there, Steven Kruijswijk. He is a very, very promising youngster on the Rabobank team, along with Tom Slachter. Had another good season. Almost every race he's ridden, he's won the white jersey as best young rider. Not yet a challenger here. Getting down to flatter roads now, beginning to tickle the outside of town. Now he's settled into his time trial style. He's right up under those trees and he's riding to the left of the road, and the reason he does that is not just the shortest way round, but if he rides down the tree line they may not spot him. Dan Martin has made this group, which has swelled a little bit. There are 7 riders here now. Rafał Maćka of Poland, 165. Also here's Tom Slachter doing the work in the orange jersey. Those are the 2 best young riders in this race. Whoever finishes above the other one should be the next wearer of the jersey. Just depends on the proximity of this chase behind. But the fact that this group is being ridden away from by those riders up front says that they must be right on the limit of their speed right now because of the way they've come through those mountains today, which are now happily at their backs. Tony Martin, no road win at all for him this year. He's had 4 time trial wins, but this will be particularly pleasurable if he pulls it off, because if he does pull it off with his 10-second win bonus, I think that says 25 seconds at the moment, and 110 to the group behind. So they really have pulled away even from the group behind. 45 seconds this group ahead of that chase group, and goodness knows where the main peloton have now gone. So Martin has 25 seconds on these, and that should be enough now. time gap at 25 seconds, a 10-second win bonus will put him in a very comfortable position tomorrow. But it's worth noting that in the split today, Tony Martin was the only member of his Omega Pharma Quick-Step squad to make that decisive split. So is his team strong enough for tomorrow if, and is now assured, he's going to get the red jersey, because we're crossing the river here, a left turn on the other side, and the finishing straight will beckon. He knows it, and this will go down very, very well for the German World Time Trial Champion for the second year. Wise man to check over. You never know who might slip away in the closing kilometre or so. Here's the left turn. Right in the distance, Martin has made that left turn here, so that's a good 25 seconds to this group. Young Tom Slagter, babyface Tom I think we'll call him, as he takes a good look at Eros Kopecky coming through. Gavazzi there for Astana in that group. Surely it'll be a formality for him in the sprint. He is a pure sprinter and done very well to make a split like this. Time to zip up the jersey, get ready for the presentation, because he's heading in now to the last few hundred metres. These boys might start to finesse just a little bit to get themselves ready for the finish. That is Nocentini checking out where Gavazzi is. He knows Gavazzi only too well, the two Italian riders. This man is already celebrating and might be throwing a couple of seconds into the bin as well, and he needs every second, I think. He won this race by only a few seconds last year, but it was all down to his victory in the time trial. Now he's going to have a lot more than his winning margin last year by the time he gets down to the finish. But he still has 3 days to ride, and 3 quite hilly days as well. The moment has passed for the riders to catch up, and he knows it and they know it. The blue transponder on his fork stay there will stop the clock as he races up. It's just before the bridge ahead. The bridge is actually after the finishing line. Well, a stage like this, it would be, and actually it would be a rather nice finishing straight for a sprinter, except that he's on his own. Patrick Lefevre, the team manager, in the front seat of that car, and he'll be pretty delighted with what's happening here. Tony Martin enjoying his first season here with the squad, which has had an incredibly good year. They don't seem to be able to do anything wrong this year, the Omega Pharma Quick-Step squad. And here just adds one more list of honours to their great season, and this time to the World Time Trial Champion. A red jersey awaits him. This is the build-up for the sprint for second place. And the speed that Martin has come up this home straight, he's going to have time to get off his bike and watch the sprint for second place. You can see the smile on Patrick Lefevre's face in the car there, the Belgian. One of the most famous of all of the directors sportifs of professional cycling. He's been behind many of the greatest riders in the world at their greatest moment. Today no exception. Gavazzi in the Astana colours there, that turquoise jersey, just checking out who's going to take him on in the sprint. Meanwhile, about 300 or 400 metres ahead, this is the moment for last year's defending champion, Tony Martin. They turn off the team cars, only the referee follows him to the line. Time for the two-arm salute. Tony Martin is back, and back in the red jersey here on the second day. And it's for the others now to take him on over the remaining 3 days. It's Edvard Boysenhagen, who packs a very good sprint, but he's racing to save time, I think, in that group behind, because this is the finesse that, you know, they're not very far behind this group, and if they do mess about, then that group led by Edvard Boysenhagen will catch them in the sprint. There's the celebration for Tony Martin, and there is the group led by Boysenhagen closing in. And in fact, the riders in the front, at least some of them, have seen it and started the sprint here. Gavazzi on the far left of our picture on the wheel of Sylvain Georges now sees the space in the middle, and at 100 metres the Italian sprinter, who probably would have won if he hadn't been slipped by Tony Martin, has to be content with second. Eros Kopecky crossed the line third, and a matter of 2 or 3 seconds, that's all. The bunch almost got back in contention there. And do you think that Tony Martin worries where any of them is? I doubt it. Looks to see them come in. Thinks, I recognise you guys. I last saw you on the last climb of the day. And there's a little bit of the section of the public here in Mentugu. This is when he knew he'd won. This was a great moment for him. His first road race win of the year. And finally, his serious injuries behind him. And very happy to be on top. So Andy Schleck just take encouragement, because here Tony Martin has refound his great form after 2 serious crashes this year. While we're hearing that Andy Schleck at the moment is something like 12 minutes behind. We might see him come in. So waiting now for the sprint, and look how close they were here. This is the reenactment of the race for second place. They almost made it, didn't they? There was a brief moment I thought they might have turned right and gone with the cars, but fortunately they did keep coming. Very, very close to latching on. Racing for time, really. Every second could count by the end of this race on Saturday. Just about 3 or 4 seconds, maybe 5. This is Gavazzi taking second. That's how a sprinter wins, by a good length over Capecchi and Nocentini. Slachter there as well. But the happiest man of the day here, no doubt about that. There's the result for you. Tony Martin gets the stage. What a fast time it was for 126 kilometres inside 3 hours. Gavazzi, Capecchi, Nocentini. I think we can now go back down to David Colbert now with Tony Martin.
Yeah, it's incredible for me and for the whole team. We thought it would be really, really hard to get in the lead again, because there's no time trial this year. And now I could win the second stage and I'm in the leader jersey again, so it's fantastic for the whole group, and now we go for the win here.
What about during the stage? Because particularly the second climb, it was quite severe, and then the third climb as well, and then you decided to make your break. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, especially the first climb, the 10Ks, were really, really hard. The whole peloton was splitted, but I could stay in the front, and I had really good legs. But yeah, it's always hard to be alone in the group. I had to poker a little bit. I just tried to stay with the best. And suddenly, yeah, I got a small gap in the descent of the last climb, and then I thought, okay, now it's 20 Ks to the finish, and okay, I'm the world champion in time trial. So when I have the gap one time, I have good chances to arrive.
50 seconds is your lead going into tomorrow. That's a big lead. You're a great chance to defend this title.
Yeah, I think it's more than last year, so the chance is there. But yeah, tomorrow is an uphill finish, and for sure some guys will go really, really fast. And yeah, now I have to fight with the team to keep the jersey.
Well, congratulations on the win today. One to remember. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about playing poker there. He really was a strong man on the mountains. There's a sad sight. This is the arrival now on the left of Andy Schleck, who's now very unaccustomed indeed to finishing nearly at the back of the race here and losing an awful lot of time in double figures. But he's on his way back, and that's the good news for him. His injuries happening just before the Tour de France. Here on the podium, though, happy days for the defending champion. I can't believe that Tony Martin thought he will be back in red in a race here this week in Beijing. But he is, and he's got a very good lead now. Bigger than his winning margin of a year ago. 50 seconds over the sprinter Gavazzi, 52 over Capecchi, a little bit further over Edvard Boysenhagen, who remains the biggest danger of these top four, I think. Also Nocentini, also a big danger, sitting there in 5th place. But welcome home, because this is the return of his red jersey, which he took away to Germany just 1 year ago as winner of the first Tour of Beijing. So he has a good chance now of defending this, but we're now going to find out just how strong is his team, because tomorrow they are going to be working very, very hard indeed on what is an even longer stage, almost by 40 kilometers more than today. Join us again tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.